Welcome to Drums, 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 Episode 6, with me, Nathan Bonison. In this month's episode, we're going to have a closer look at this Pearl Forum series kit. We're going to take off the hardware, peel back the wrap, and see what's underneath. I managed to get this kit at a secondhand thrift store for just over $100, and it was in pretty good shape. The hardware and the rims, they were a little bit worn and the skins were very well used, but it had a decent tone for what it was, and I thought, yeah, it's a pretty good deal, so let's see what I can do with it. We're just going to start by removing the skins the same way you would put them on. Just release the tension on the truss rods in a star pattern slowly and steadily until you can finger loosen them all. Normally you'd clean the edges there, but they're pretty clean, and I am going to sand this down later just to make it a little smoother. The drums are in pretty good shape, the wood's pretty good. I believe these drums are maple, and it's a smaller kit. This is a 10-inch tom, then there's a 12-inch tom, then a 14-inch floor tom, a 20-inch kick, and a 14-inch snare. I'm just keeping all this hardware together so it's easier to put this all back together when the project's finished. And now we're just moving on to the badge here. When I did this before, I was lucky enough and the badge was only held on by 2 screws, but this time it was glued on as well as screwed on, and I wasn't quite prepared for that, so you can watch me struggle with this one for a little bit. I was hoping to save these badges in case I wanted to place them back on the drums after I was done, but it's looking more and more like I'm probably just gonna scrap them. I might keep one for the kick drum, I'm not quite sure yet, but I definitely just damaged the one that I'm taking off right now, so as you can see, I'm removing it with very little care now. So as you can see, I've done the other tom, and I've moved my way to the floor tom now to save you guys some time here, and I've used the heat gun, and I'm moving on to a razor blade and getting some safety glasses. I have some safety gloves on to protect my fingers and my eyes here, because anybody who's used a razor blade before knows that little pieces can chip off, and nobody wants that in their eyeball. As you can see, I'm having a little more success with this badge here, although I might not be keeping them. I was still trying to do my best to keep them in as good a condition as I could. Yeah, that one turned out alright. And always remember when you're using a heat gun or a hairdryer like me, use a medium to low setting and never hold the gun on one spot for too long, because you don't want to warp your drum or damage your drum in any way, because those who know wood and heat know that they don't go along together very well. These vinyl wraps tend to be pretty sharp, so I'd take caution while removing them. This one in particular was pretty sharp, and I got a couple scratches on my arms, but it was no big deal. And you'll see here that this wrap was only glued in 2 spots, thankfully. I have had drums before where the wrap is actually glued every time there's a place for hardware, basically, every hardware hole. Now we're just going to chisel out around this port here, and that'll make it a whole lot easier to take this vinyl wrap off. And I'm going to try and move hastily because the glue is still warm from when I was using the heat gun, so if I'm lucky I'll be able to just rip the whole thing off. Excellent. Now we're just going to work on getting those little bits of vinyl out from there. Oh yeah, as you can see, they don't take as much care on these cheaper drums. This is a $300 or $400 drum set. They don't take as much care binding the wood there because it's all hidden behind the wrap. If you were working on a more expensive kit, I'd highly recommend being a lot more careful. We're going to do a bit of wood burning and I think a dark stain on this kit, so we're not too worried about the condition of the wood around the sound port there. Alright, now we're moving on to the bigger drum, the kick drum here. And we're just going to do the same thing we did with the other drums. We're just going to remove the skin, slowly releasing the tension in a star pattern. And then once you get it to finger loose, you can finger loosen it. And you just want to do it that way so you don't stress the drum out too much. Ooh, that's a pretty dirty edge. We're gonna clean this up a bit here. Get rid of this dirty old pillow. I just finger loosened all the hardware on this one, so it was very quick and easy for me to kind of like remove and put the pieces back together. There's more than one right way to do things, that's for sure. And again, I have labeled bags for each drum, so when I'm putting it back together, it's very easy for me to figure out what belongs where. This kick drum has a couple extra pieces of hardware to remove, just like the floor tom, and then it's got the kind of little rack thing for the toms on the top too. Yeah, now we're gonna move on to getting the wrap off this bad boy. Just gonna chisel out around this sound port here. Alright, we're moving on to the snare drum, the final piece here. These snare drums, they're made out of poplar. I believe all the Pearlform series come with a poplar snare drum. And we're just going to remove the skin just as we did the other drums in the star fashion. On this drum, you're going to have to remove the snare before you remove the bottom rim, and there's a couple extra pieces of hardware that hold the snare in place via those little plastic clips, I guess you could call them. If you like the music used in this video, you can actually go back and jam to them if you look at our prior videos. The first track with the drums is a rock backing track and actually has a full band for you to jam over, and the one right now, the metal track, you can actually go jam over that too without the lead guitar. This one didn't come off quite as easy. There we go. That's alright. We just gotta get the vinyl wrap out of this port here. Just trying to decide if I'm going to use the old chisel method or the razor blade. Alright. Thank you guys very much for tuning in, and I really appreciate those of you who've made it to the end. Consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed what you saw, because we're going to be finishing up this drum set in a future episode.